Three, two, one. You're listening to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast about business marketing, growth, strategy, staff clients, babies, and marriage. I'm Christina. This is Peter. We're founders and leaders of CIPR Communication. And this time we're still continuing our series on hiring versus agency. Spoiler alert, it's both. This episode we're talking about planning for growth, and I want to share a parenting story first.
Okay.
About growth. I think some of the best advice we got before the boys came was, well, two sets of things. One, you know fundamentally what you're going to need as your family is growing. So, advice that we got about every time you go to Costco now without children, buy a box of diapers. And you know that the kid is going to
squirrel things away so that it's easier later, kind of thing.
And all those practical, you're going to need diapers. You know that you're going to need every size of diaper. So buy a size 1 and then go buy a size 2. And we had a closet full of diapers.
We did.
Which was good.
We used them all.
And some more. And then the other advice that I think we got from some really wise friends was don't buy anything until you know you need it.
Yeah.
Right? I remember coming out of a baby shower with all of this stuff and very appreciative. But some of it was never touched. And my fault and your fault for making a baby registry and just putting a bunch of stuff on it because we don't know what we need. But the baby bathtubs.
Yeah.
It's we never put our kids in those because when you have twins, it's you're all hands on deck. You were using something that we used to ice our beers in to wash them for the first little bit. But you don't know what you don't know. And so I guess as we talk about this, it's there are certain things that you can plan for and you fundamentally know you need, and you should keep your eyes on that. But also don't plan too far in advance. You don't know what the industry's going to do. You don't know what the market's going to do.
Yeah.
You don't know the personalities on your team, or what we were talking about in the last episode around where staff people gravitate to or what they love. You don't know how that's going to change and transform. So, that proactive and reactive, similar to parenting. Anyways, that is my spiel.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, and this is I think there's some lessons we can take from our evolution as a business too. Because I think when you're in a new business, when you start a new business, you want staff because there's some ego component to it or whatever. And I have a big team and whatever. And then at some point, I know for me, it was the opposite. It was how few staff can we get away with, and how can we use more contractors, and how can we use other agencies to help us or whatever? Because frankly, it's they're more flexible and easier to change and fire if you need, not fire, but if you don't need them anymore, then you can end the relationship more easily, right? So I think if you're really, really planning for a growth phase in your company, I think, and this is maybe a little bit biased, but I think that planning to use an agency more or leaning on an agency more is really wise for your business, because you don't, obviously planning for growth and achieving growth are two different things, right? And so, let's just think about COVID. I mean, actually, this is a great example. CIPR was super posed for really explosive growth in March 2020. We had just invested a lot of energy and time and money into developing a lead machine in terms of the tourism space. We had just been invited to speak at the BC Tourism Industry Conference. We had a packed house at the tourism industry conference at our speaking engagement. Lots of interest in what we were talking about. We were just about to sell all these tourism clients on the value of tourism stuff we were doing, and then COVID hit. And then it literally just disappeared from us. Interestingly, now 12 months later, we're actually having a lot of those same conversations and signing up a lot of those clients. But my point is that the world changed in an instant, and it had nothing to do with us. And had we staffed up first to get ready for this growth, we would have been in a really bad position. And we didn't do that. And so I think if you're planning for growth, it's to use an agency to help you ramp up and to help you get going and to help really kind of get your machine going on all cylinders, I think is really wise. And then once you've achieved that growth and that success, or as you're achieving that growth and that success, and you have better visibility as to whether you're actually going to be able to execute the plans that you have, that's the time to start thinking then, okay, how can we now start to hire in-house? And then how can we start to, like change that mix, right? And maybe now it's like, okay, we've learned all this stuff from the agency. They've helped us get to here. Now we can bring in-house people and they can kind of take over. And that means we can sort of like reduce the amount we're paying the agency because we have in-house staff that can handle it. And then again, it's, as we talked about, it's about how do you change the mix to have the optimal situation for your business, right? So yeah, I sort of say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. And working with an agency, I think in this perspective gives you the best flexibility and the least amount of risk, in case things don't go the way you hope that they go.
I like thinking about agencies in times of growth too, from just an innovative perspective. I think that I think about certain clients right now where we came in at just the right time so things didn't seem stale, right? Like, so like clients who are like, okay, we're ready to take things to the next level, or we feel like, we need to try something new to ramp up prospects or leads or whatever. And like, we can come in and, show the tickle trunk full of new, maybe sexy ideas they've never thought about, or, experience with companies in similar kind of spaces as them. And we can say, this worked, this didn't. Our ability to kind of use tools to analyze the space. And I think when you're in this zone of, okay, I'm gearing up to grow, and I know that, and you look around the table, maybe if you're a small business owner, your table looks small, but like, there are probably only a certain amount of ideas of things that have worked before and things that haven't. And so in a time of growth, similar to what you said, it's a nice time to bring an agency in to try something different or new, or get new ideas, or even just have that perspective of an outsider. Because, maybe it's not the right time to grow.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the right time. And hopefully that agency could tell you that, or you're building a strategy with them that can help tell you that. But I think even from that perspective, fresh eyes, but also the perspective of, keep your staff focused on the day-to-day operationalization of your marketing tactics that are working, and move that agency into the growth side.
And the other thing I'll say too is like, there's a couple things here. Is like, number one, okay, you're planning for growth. Is your staff ready for growth? And like, are you ready to, like, if you have a huge amount of increase in leads or whatever, sales or whatever it is, like, do you have the staff in how, like, more importantly than worrying about like a marketing person that, to hire or whatever, it's like, can you execute? Because like, that's the other, and we've run into this as well, where, and again, I'm going to kind of pick on you a little bit, Christina, but like, in order for our agency to grow, Christina needs to be out of client work as much as possible, and needs to be more in an overseeing role. And we need to have the right staff in place to execute and all that kind of stuff. So there's like an infrastructure that needs to be in place, because otherwise it's just Christina gets overwhelmed, and then it's sort of, she can't do other things and whatever. Right. So it's like, really think about your internal mix and make sure that you're ready for that growth. Is probably a more important place for you to be thinking about your internal resources and making sure they're ready. And again, that's where I think I'm biased towards, then for the agency to really help support that growth for a period of time. And then, making sure, again, your staff can actually like execute that growth. And then the other thing I was sort of just thinking about, as I was talking to a friend and client who, we were just talking about, he told me that like, he used to spend a lot of money in the past on marketing, and he felt that like he was basically just like not really making a return on investment on that marketing. I.e., he would spend a lot of, like, basically it would cost him a lot of money for client acquisition, but then, like, he wasn't sure if he looked at his costs, if there was really an ROI. And I started talking to him about, okay, well, like, what is the, how often do these clients come back, and, what are your upselling opportunities? And so it really got him thinking about like, what happened to his business, he was very successful and he was spending a lot of money on marketing. He didn't think he was making money, but then he stopped spending money on marketing, and now he doesn't have that many clients anymore, and now he's sort of like, I need more clients. But my point is that if you're planning for growth, so top line growth, revenue growth, that's not necessarily profitability. And so you need to be thinking about that. Like, you might be buying growth, buying business, and during your growth period, it may not be a profitable thing,
right,
but the goal is plan on how do you convert that into a profit. So you might be spending a lot more money on marketing to get those clients, but then how can you get the most out of those clients over time? And that's really where I think your in-house staff could really, if they're focused on the right things, can really help you. How do we upsell these clients? How do we make more money per transaction, all those types of things.
Yeah.
I think that's where you really should be focusing your internal staff's efforts. How do we execute? How do we get the most out of these clients? How do we, maximize profit?
That operate. I'm really struggling today. The operationalization of that piece. And, I'll touch back to a point you made before, in the sense of, like, when you're growing, you don't know, you don't know if it's going to go well or not. And if you have a staff that you've hired with growth in mind, all of a sudden it gets quite expensive to now have to lose that staff person, or is that person always busy, or whatever. And I think, similar to this client you're talking about, it's like, like, get your agency thinking about that and on it and moving you in the direction, and then they can raise the flag, like, hey, this is busy. Now's the time to hire someone new, or, hey, this didn't work, but that's okay. Let's pivot over here. Let's try this. Let's do something different. Or, I think, flexibility is important, but through the series, I feel like we've been very fair on, like, in-house or marketing. But I think in this particular perspective, it's like, gear up to have an agency help you grow, and have that real open conversation with them. Like, if you have no marketing staff and you're looking to grow your business and you're handling it for now, like, have that conversation of, like, in 6 to 12 months, if this goes well, like, I would like to hire a staff person to cover X, Y, and Z. And, like, those are healthy conversations. And that's actually, like, a really good goal to keep in mind for an agency, right? Like, okay, I also need to think about building process around this. I also need to think about, how to hand this off, but also, what am I going to do when it's done? Is there going to be another growth opportunity? Are there balls in the air that still need to go? Like,
I think you touched on something. I'm going to interrupt you a little bit.
Okay, sorry. I think businesses often, like, hold their cards close to their chest when it comes to what you want to do with your agency in the future.
Right.
Like, to be a fly in the boardroom, I think would be very interesting. We're going to hire this agency. We're going to use them for one thing. We're going to kick them out the door. Or this is 1 year and and it's like, just be honest with your agency. Like, totally. I'm under no false pretense that I'm going to be your agency for the next 25 years.
Yeah.
Would that be great? Great. Sure. But I would much rather have an honest conversation with a client about, hey, like, what is your goal? And is your goal to have a marketing team of 25? How can I help you get there?
Totally.
Is your goal just to do this? Cool. Like, how can we make this profitable for you?
Yeah. Well, that's where I was going to interrupt you, is sort of along those lines. But, what you touched on there is really important. And I agree 100% in terms of being transparent with your agency, because it's like, you're planning for growth, and growth also means new processes and new systems and new whatever. And so really an agency could really, really, really help you develop processes and systems. And, we've talked about this before, but, like, we're redefining what success looks like often with clients, where, it's not just about leads and sales. Sometimes it is about, we've developed a process and a system, and now we have a way to get approvals without delays. Like, those are big deals actually in a lot of companies, and a lot of companies don't put value in that. If you're planning to growth, and now you're gonna, to your point, you're transitioning to a team of in-house 25 people to be your marketing team. It's like, if you're honest and transparent with your agency and they're aware of that, it's like, a good agency is not going to feel threatened by that. They're going to say, great, here's how we can help, here's how we can support, here's the systems and processes we can create. And there's always going to be a role for that agency. And if there's not, it is what it is. We're only valuable to you if we meet a need and we're, meeting your objectives, right? And if we're not, you know, we also don't, like, we've been in situations where it's like, we're not adding value here anymore and we feel it. And it's not because we're not doing a good job. It's because the company's evolved and we've come to the table and had conversations where it's like this, you know, we don't think it's in your best interest to keep working with us at this point, or at least not under the current circumstances. So let's have an honest conversation about that. And clients have been very welcome, like they've welcomed that conversation, because if we feel it, they're feeling it.
Yeah.
And the last thing anybody wants is to go 6 months, 12 months not feeling good about a relationship. Like, so it's not personal, it's just business, right? And so yeah, totally.
It's true. And you know, all the that component aside too, you know, think of us as humans.
Yes.
Like if just from our own business planning perspective, right? Like I think about the client I was chatting with earlier this morning about contract renewals and things like that, and it's like they have been so open and honest with us from the beginning about staff and mix of agency in this, and that conversation becomes so easy. All right,
Hmm.
someone in house now is now doing a couple things, so I'll take it off my plate, and here's a new contract, and here, like it's easy. And
Hmm.
from our perspective, we knew, okay, April, this potential client could go up or down, and our eyes as business owners are on it. So, you know, be human
Yeah.
because it helps us with our own business planning. And, you know, like I said, transparency is so important in these things. So,
Yeah.
I guess if you're preparing for growth, our vote would be to use an agency. And if you're preparing for growth and you're thinking about your long-term business, include the agency in those conversations because they can help you.
Yeah, make us part of your team, as opposed to sort of like this external outside group that only gets brought in when, you know, decisions have been made. I think if you can make us part of your decision making process, it's better for everybody, and it'll lead to better long term success for everybody.
It's true. All
Yes.
right. Are you doing the sign off or should I rock,
Right.
paper,
Yeah. Well,
scissors?
thanks everybody for listening. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, and comment. We really appreciate it.